All right, how's everybody doing?
Doing great.
I'm talking to myself. Am I muted? Unmuted?
You're recording. No, you're not. I'm talking. Can you not hear me?
Can you guys hear me? Oh wait, there we go. I had
Yeah, your speaker's off, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah,
I'm a genius this one.
that's recorded, just so you know.
to eternally go down in time of hello?
Right.
Like what an idiot. His speakers are off. Bound to happen one of these days, right? I've got all these mute buttons, and I don't know if you guys can see this. It's like I can mute you guys, turn on and off your cameras. I'm trying to operate that. My little graphic that I came up with to make it look more official. All right, so you guys ready to jump into this?
Yes, sir.
I was waiting for yay. This is probably the most boring yet most important conversation of being a realtor, is knowing how to spot, not really spot a good deal, I guess is not what I'm trying to say, but being able to understand and explain to people why you're saying what you're saying regarding pricing, right? And I'll be the first to admit, I've gone into conversations with sellers and buyers where, you know, you get fixated on one idea as far as pricing, and then they bring something up and you're like, oh shoot, you know, I didn't really think about that. And so it's one of the reasons why, to be honest with you, I love this conversation of when you're meeting with a seller, of letting them know and saying, look, I brought some comps, and I always say these are some bare comps. Now that I've seen your home, now what I'm gonna do is go back and I'm gonna run the numbers a little bit tighter to make sure that I ran these correct, you know, so that we can come up with the correct number to list your house at. One of the reasons why I do that is because when I'm running numbers, sometimes I'll put in like a gauge, right? So you're going and you're looking at call it an 1,800 square foot house. And so I've got an 1,800 square foot house that I'm looking at. So I'm gonna run the numbers up to probably like 2,000 or maybe 2,100. And I'm gonna run them down to 1,500. And you walk in and you're thinking, all right, this is a $500,000 house all day long, right? Just as an example. And they're like, yeah, my neighbor down the house sold their house for 550. And you're like, which one was that? And they're like, yeah, Main Street. And you're going through your list and you're like, why isn't that on my list? And you're like, well, yeah, you know, I'll be looking at that too, you know. And so you play it off. Say, look, I'm gonna be looking at it too when I go back to my desk and, you know, really run these numbers. But I wanted to give you these as a preliminary to kind of to work off of, right? And then you find out that the house that sold for more than what you were thinking this one should sell for is slightly smaller or way bigger. So it's at 2110. So you would cut it off at 2100, or it's at like 1390 and you would cut it off at 1400 or whatever it ends up being. And because I think you need those parameters. So that's kind of my thought process on that, and why I like going in there, because if you walk in and say, look, I know what I'm talking about, I ran the comps, and then they pull one comp that you didn't pull, you instantly look like you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And, you know, so why would you set yourself up for that? You know, and that way when you go back and you could say, you know, when they're like thinking, well, I want to be at 500 and the neighbor sold for 550, now you can say, so I sent you some comp, you know, I left you some comps to look at. You'll notice that the house that you brought up to me, your neighbor's house that closed at 550, was not on that list. Yeah, I saw that. You know, they'll get all huffy puffy about it. Yeah, I saw that. And I'm like, well, one of the reasons why it wasn't on there is because it's you know, it's at 2110 square feet. Your property is at 1,800 square feet. So I didn't want to pull, you know, when I'm running those numbers, I got to get it in as tight as possible. You know, that's over 300 square foot larger than your home. It's definitely something that we can use to leverage up. And then you can go, And because that one sold for 550, that's why I feel very comfortable after running all the comps, offering and letting you know that I feel comfortable with a list price of 500. So you can kind of turn it around and use the comp that they gave you to justify the price that they're asking. Because I feel like 9 times out of 10, you're going into any type of listing conversation trying to defend or prove or show them that, you know, you can get them the price that they're looking for. I mean, every once in a while, you'll get a unicorn seller who just says, I don't know, you tell me, you know, and you kind of walk in and you're like, yeah, I'm really thinking 500. And they're like, oh, that's great. We were only thinking 475. You know, that's the unicorn seller. 9 times out of 10, they're going to Zillow. They're looking at these things. You know, they're checking out these different, they're going to Redfin, Realtor.com offers an automated, you know, valuation. So they're going into these different things, and then they see that, you know, we're really thinking 550, and then now you got to talk them down to 500. That's the majority of the time is you're working your way backwards with a seller versus giving them a surprise and going, they're like, oh wow, we're making way more than we thought. That just typically doesn't happen, just to be honest with you. So let's dive into this a little bit. I'm gonna run a couple different comps based off of just different scenarios. You know, this one might actually not be a bad one to use as an example. So can you guys all see my screen pretty well?
Yes.
So this is a listing that I've already got it signed. I've been just trying to get in there with a tenant, and I'm finally gonna be able to get in there tomorrow and take a look at it. So it's a condo. I won't tell you what I've listed it at, but I'll give you an idea as to what I'm going to list it at once we kind of go through this, and you'll see and be able to kind of see my thought process as to where we're at. And so this is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,056 square foot condo in Mesa, in the same location as that other one I just closed. And so I was able to, on the fly on this one, I was able to talk to them pretty intelligently about it because I just ran comps on it because I was under contract on the other one ready to close when this seller called me. This is one of the beauties of working in a specific area is you can speak a little bit more fluidly versus being like frozen and being like, yeah, I don't know. So a lot of what we're going to show you here today is stuff that you should be doing in your own general area. And as you kind of work a farm area, you should be running these comps on a regular basis so that you can, you know, when they go, oh, did you see that property? Oh, yeah, can you believe it? You know, I can't believe they're asking, you know, X dollars for that house and it doesn't even have a pool. You know, because they're watching, a lot of times you'll find your neighbors are watching the comps in your neighborhood more than you are, and you're the professional. So we'll use this one as an example. I'm going to just open up another browser.
Can never mind.
Can you blow that out a little bit, Lynn? My eyes, it's pretty small on my screen. I'm trying to make it bigger myself, but I can't figure out how to do that right this second.
Is that a little better?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Okay. So now that old man eyes are adjusted to this, actually, it's better for me too. Okay. That's all right. So you'll notice this is something that a lot of people do. I think is a mistake. Is they'll look at this property and they'll look at the subdivision and they'll go, okay, Solana, right? And then they'll just go into here to the quick search and they'll scroll down to wherever the subdivision piece is and they'll type in Solana, right? That's the shortcut way to pull properties in a location.
Yeah.
What's the problem with that?
The problem with that is the information in MLS is only as good as the agent that puts it in. So,
What's the old garbage in, garbage out?
exactly. Yeah. So I would narrow down your search by area.
So I don't even search by area. I am a firm believer when I'm doing a search, I am a map clicking son of a gun. So this one's over here by Banner Medical. This is the community right here. And so I'm gonna go in here and I'm just gonna click a bunch of points. Click, click. I always use the map search because I figure at the very least,
Especially with condos,
yeah.
I mean, because they don't, a lot of times they don't they don't have them in there right for design, or dwelling type, dwelling style, whatever you need to have in there, the agents, 9 times out of 10, they get it wrong, so.
Well, and at least they're gonna put the address in, I hope, correctly.
Yeah.
And so with a 90-day close of escrow research and pulling every status, so you'll see that's kind of what I did. I always go down to close and then I just hold the mouse and scroll it up. You can't do that if you don't have a mouse. Remember these old school things for you trackpad people? But you can see I've got 5 properties here to look at. So it's not a lot of data to pull from, but it should be enough that I can at least get an idea. So you can see this property here is 1,023 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, under contract at 330,000. I'm at 1,056 square feet, so I'm a little bit bigger than this one. I have a model match here at 1,056 square feet, closed at 322. I have another model match at 350, and then I have this turd over here who sold a 3-bedroom for 361. Oh, that guy. So that's my closing over there from just a few weeks ago.
Tim, by the way, if you see by the picture where Len is, there's a little bar. If you drag it all the way to the right, it gets a little bigger.
Oh. Yeah, I had it like that. I had it as big as I could get it, but thank
Gotcha.
you.
Yeah, no worries, trying to help.
So
Okay,
looking
yeah,
at, yeah, so you look at these different things and you can see, okay, well, like, what's this view here, right? So you've got a nice interior courtyard view on this one. And, I'll go through and I'll look at these and I'll say, okay, well, basic, this is the way the builder built it. I'm not seeing any upgrades on this one at all. Everything looks pretty basic,
Mhm.
Yeah, needs updating.
which is fine. It's probably most of these.
Just to circle back to that garbage in, garbage out. If you click on detail again and look at that comp 2 that you're on.
What's
you'll-
that?
if
Your
you
mic
click-
is like, sounds like you're the back of the room.
If you click detail and look out at that comp you're on right now, I think it said it had 33 bedrooms. So just, well, maybe not that one. Go back to list. Oh, never
2.
mind. That's 33 days on market. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
that's 3. Oh yeah,
You see
so-
that all the time where people put in, they have a mistake in there. And so that's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, and so you'll notice too, like when I'm running my list report, I can see the cumulative days on market. I created, so you can go in here and I created a custom view. So when I went into here, I like to see the cumulative days on market. By default, they don't show you that. It's a technique that I've used a lot in our current world where basically, your buyers who kind of back to the conversation of buying ugly. I've said, well, we need to go look for properties that are, and on the market for a while. And so adding this field allowed me to go, hey, here's a property that's been on the market for 21 days, and I would just send them those ones. And so that's why I did that. But so this one here, 322.5, same, this is a model match here. And so I'm going to go through these pictures as well. And it's just a quick glimpse. I mean, so this one's nice. They redid the floors. These are still Formica countertops. You can always tell by these angles here. It's like, the granite look. But I can't. I mean, it's hard to tell if that's the
Question,
view or
is it
not.
more expensive on the 1-story or the top story or the bottom?
Well, it's a walk up, so it depends on your clientele, right? So some people don't want people on top of them and some people don't want to walk stairs.
Gotcha.
So like for older people, they like that first floor. For younger people, they maybe want that top floor.
Yeah, some people don't want the first floor because they don't want people walking on top of them. So typically you don't see a market difference in most of the areas because you got half the people that want the top and half the people that want the bottom. So
Well, then you run into the trick too. So you're looking at this and you're going, okay, so it says 36 days on market, but we put our things into UCB and the market time keeps climbing. So this, you got to look at the list date and then the under contract date. So it was 2/6 it went on and it went under contract 2/22. So it was really only on the contract for like 10 days. Not even 10 days. I'm really good at math. So 8 days, multiple offers received. So there was, and they were asking 310 and it went up 12,000. And the close of escrow date was, it went under contract really more than 60 days ago. And so then you got this one, here's the other model match. Now this is a second floor unit because it's, unit 2. This one was listed at 318, went all the way up to 350. And this happened after this one. And so if I'm looking at trending, I'm going, okay, well, back in February, it was worth 322. Fast forward to that last day, or the under contract date, fast forward to the beginning of April, they were willing to pay 350 for it. Where do you think I'm listing this one? Knowing it's pretty much the same. Second story, overlooking the interior, does have a fireplace, which I don't really think holds too much value, but it could be a nice little, oh, that's cool, type thing.
I would say like 340 and let the market drive it.
Yeah, well, based on this one going for 350, I'm gonna put it up as coming soon for 350. For 30 days, see how it goes, and if I can, if I have to adjust it, I'll adjust it. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like these guys have kind of set the price. We're obviously going to have, it's a different market now than it was. I think we're going to see less and less of the buyers driving up the price. So as we start to see the buyers doing less and less to drive up the price, we have to become a little bit more aggressive in our listing price to say, look, where do you really want to be? Like, what's your bottom line? And if they're like, look, I don't want to sell this thing for less than 345, great. Well, let's list it at 350. Maybe we can adjust down to 345. That's probably 3 to 6 months away when we're actually seeing that happen. So I'm already starting to think, less about a $10,000 above asking price swing and more about saying, let's get really close to where we want it to be. And yeah, I may not sell it in 5 minutes, but I can still hold strong to my price if I have something to believe on. I can look, last one sold at 350. And when you look at the pictures, there's not even interior pictures. So I have no idea what that thing looks like.
I would expect to list at 350 and I would expect it to go higher. And when you're looking at that, you're saying, okay, 350 under contract date, April 3rd, we've seen about 2% a month increases, which is about $6,000. So, in my head, I'd be going listed 350 under contract somewhere between 355 and 360.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I thought too. Our job is to get our sellers the most money possible. And we, sometimes you have to push a little bit and I'm okay with that. And so I don't have any pictures. I was checking the history here real quick to see if anybody had pulled pictures. Because there are some agents where you'll look in the last status section, you'll see deleted pictures. And basically at that point, you just jump on realtor.com or Zillow and you'll be able to find those old pictures. So it's a BS tactic, in my opinion. I can't stand when agents do that, but it is what it is. So, you pull this I like this little quick CMA report just because it gives me the one line items and it gives me, this becomes my conversation point. So if I'm sitting down talking with a seller, so this is that art of the CMA type thing where I can say, look, the good news is you don't have any competition in your building right now. And when you're dealing with condos, if you have enough comps inside the condos, you just use the comps you have inside the condos, because from an appraisal perspective, I look at it and go, I've got enough of a story. I'm just going to pull from this location. Now, if I didn't have any history in here at all, now I'm gonna have to go and find similar condo units. Similar age, similar all that stuff. You know, you can see these were built in 2004. So right here, you can see the year it was built, 2004. So I'm gonna be looking for similar age, maybe between like 2000 and 2008 would probably be the spread that I would do. And then I would start to say, okay, what are 2-bedroom, 2-bath condos that are like, you know, with similar amenities, because you got pool, all the other stuff. I don't have to dig into all that when I'm looking at enough to look at inside the building, but this is where I base a lot of my conversations off of, is just this page. And this is the page that I bring. So a lot of people bring like, you know, 16 pages of CMA. I bring this. Because remember, when I'm going face to face, I'm just having a conversation. I'm not sitting down and saying, you know, this is why we're going to list your price at this your property at this price. Now, if I go back for a second meeting, then I'm going to pull, you know, maybe I would pull, you know, these things. But what I've learned to do is I challenge the seller, knowing that I'm going to give them a price a little bit later. Like, let's just say, you know, I go with what Tim was saying and say, look, I'm going to try to push for 340. And in all honesty, had this one not closed at 350, you know, had this one right here not closed at 350, I'd probably be shooting for like 330, 335, maybe tops as a list price. And I would say, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's your challenge. So when I leave here, go on Zillow, go Google this, you know, unit 1078, and take a look at the pictures. And what I'm doing is I'm setting them up to be able to accept the lower price than they want tomorrow night. Because back to the art of the CMA is, have you ever gotten a call from your mechanic after you dropped off your car? And they're like, yeah, we need to do this, 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 and this. And you're just going, how much? $1,800. And your blood just instantly boils to the top, and you're like, you explode, and you're like, what the, you know, you're screaming, you're yelling, you're kicking, you're like, are you kidding me? And they always say the same thing.
Hey,
I know, you know, just think about it, give me a call. I'm highly recommending you do these things. You calm down, maybe you call them the next day, and you're like, yeah, just get it done. I need my car, just get it done. It's the same thing here. You're setting them up for a lower number than that they want. By the time they get around to the conversation, they've talked about 322.5. And in fact, they may be thinking that you're recommending 325. And so then now you sit down with them and you can go, okay, so I know, you know, what did you think about that property 320, you know, 25? And like, man, that place was nice. You know, you can see they did a lot more than we have done. You know, what are you thinking on price? And I go, well, you know, the good news is that was also 60 days ago. We're still in an appreciating market. My recommendation is we listed at 330. Oh, okay. It's not the 350 they wanted, but it's not the 322. So part of that is not just blasting them up front with a number that they're going to be mad at and saying, look, that's the price we're going to list at, you know, otherwise I'm not taking it. It's, you know, you're allowing them to do some research, and you're giving them a tool to do that research.
hey, Len, how did you get this page?
CMA.
So when you've got your comps, so back to, you know, your search, I've drawn my outline, I've seen my results. There's a button right here, it says CMA. And I just do the one-click statistical buyer CMA, and boom, it pulls it all in.
Oh yeah.
One thing
Thank
I
you.
want to add here, so I think for this community, this is perfect. You pull that community, you have limited, like really good comps and not too much stuff. But I would also follow up, like this is probably the perfect thing to take to your client, but I would also extend that search out and into other communities. I learned this lesson on Arrowhead, I think, a little bit. You can probably agree with me on that, is I was focused in on, you know, that community and the comps from that community, which kind of showed me a certain price point. But then when you really pull back and kind of look at, okay, what would buyers be looking at throughout the whole city area, whatever, rather than just this community. And that's when you come back to the carriage property and, you know, where they ended up on price versus where they started. And then that stuff, same buyer for the Carriage property is a potential buyer for the Arrowhead property. So what I'm getting at is on this, you look at this, you get the good idea of what the neighborhood goes, and then maybe you zoom back out a little bit and get a broader picture, because there
Yeah.
may be higher sales that are the same product that your buyer's looking at in a very nearby community.
So let's take as an example the Liberty property. That one was a little bit trickier to comp. And when I say it was trickier to comp, it wasn't tricky to comp from an agent's perspective. It was tricky to comp from a satisfying the seller's desires perspective, if that makes sense. So let me
Question? What do you do if there's like all comps say like the average is like 600,000 and then there's that one house that sold for like 500,000 for like no reason?
Well, in those instances, I mean, those were, what we would call like an outlier type thing. You're looking for patterns. And if you see a bunch of stuff, if I've got 5 comps that show that this should be at 600 and I've only got one showing that it shouldn't be, then I'm going to just ignore the low one. Because you got to remember, I mean, I'm always looking for the high number. So I would start at the top and go, okay, what's the highest I can, what's the highest that this house could get? And then I go, okay, now let's drop it down and let's look at pictures and all that other stuff to decide whether or not that's what I want to do. So here's the Liberty property. So this is a 3,360 square foot house in Gilbert with a 2-car garage. So this was the interesting, this is why this was interesting. So let's just, this is my process, right? So I look at the thing that I'm gonna comp, and I then look at the map. I go, okay, I know where that's at. And so I just kind of get to know the area a little bit like this, look at it, I'll go back to my detail sheet. I'm always going to look at monsoon. So typically I'm looking at the last sale. I'm just going to double check the tax records, who built it. Okay, it's a KB home. That explains a lot.
Tough area because there's a lot of different size, there's a lot of smaller lots over there.
Yeah, and so I got a 400 square foot pool, and I'm on a 60 standard, it's a standard lot for, Gilbert neighborhood. So, I'll look at the pictures. Obviously, we took these pictures, so, I'll kind of scan through it, and I literally go through this fast. I mean, I don't dwell on pictures. I literally go super fast because I'm looking for something to stand out and go, okay, I want to stare at that. And I'll usually just kind of scroll back and look at the backyard. What kind of pool are we dealing with? Okay, that looks nice. I'll check out some stuff from that perspective, and it's hard to tell here actually really well, but this is artificial grass. For a 6,600 square foot lot, it's got a decent sized yard.
Yeah,
I mean,
the 2-story. That's probably why.
That's not that much smaller than, your typical lot.
no, but it's laid out well. Like the house is placed
Yeah.
well. I mean, it's a 3,600 square foot or 3,300 square foot house with a decent sized lot, and it's
Yeah.
and it's probably because it's only a 2-car garage that they're able to do that. But still, I mean, I look at that and go, rock on. That's nice. So, okay, cool. So now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start from scratch on a quick search. And I do the exact same thing, right? Status, closed, all the way up to active. Click my 90 days. And sometimes, crap, hit the wrong button. Then I'll do it again. I don't want to look at anything over the 90 days period, just to be honest with you. And then I'll just kind of zoom in to the area that I'm in. And so starting off, you'll notice I never type in the name of the community. It's just, I don't care if it's a condo, single family, it's just not going to work out in my opinion. And so Ray Ranch here, you can see, when you're in here, it shows Higley Park Ray Ranch. So even though they've got this road right here that may feel like it's one community, it's 2 separate communities. So my first step is to go in here and just say, let's just look at Ray Ranch, which really I don't have a lot to pull from right here.
Yeah, and like I was saying, the problem is when you get out of there, like a lot of those other communities right around it have these 3,000 square foot lots.
Right, and so I've got 7 houses to choose from, one of them being ours. And, you know, on this one line sheet, I can see square footages, 2,400, 21, 21. Here's a 3094, so I might peg that one. Here's a 3360,
Same house.
here's a 4109. And here we are sitting pretty at 700,000. So I'm eliminating those smaller ones. And you could look at that and go, if that's 90 days of activity, how in the world did we come up with, you know, a $700,000 sales price?
Well, because two of them, or one
Well,
of
two of
them
them are closed,
venture
but-
REI.
650, 650, 652, and the 652 was the hardest one for me to look at because it's 4,100 square feet. And so I'm looking at it and I can see right here, I haven't even gone into it, and I can tell already it's an open door house because it's got this text right here that basically shows me that says this house is for sale, not for rent. And it looks basic, super basic, but it's still 4,100 square foot house. And then it does have a pool. So that's a tough sell. You know, and I've got these model matches right here at 650. And this one, me personally, I think the outside, it's a nice architecture
Good.
for an Arizona home.
That's the house I went to, bro.
You
With
want the
all the-
Betsy?
Yeah, yeah, with with Fabi and Tabo, Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the house, bro. They were in there and like, I didn't even go upstairs.
Oh, is all the one you called like a hoarder house type thing?
Yeah.
But
No,
it's
look at
got a
the front.
pool. So I mean, you know, it's cluttered, right? Like these are the worst pictures in history. Like, really? That's your pool shot? Is the hose? I get more hose than I get pool. I mean, it's horribly marketed. But I'm still, you know, I've got a seller who ahead of time says, you know, we're looking to get at least 700 for this. So if I'm walking into this, forget that there's this 700. If I'm walking into this, I'm going, where in the world am I going to justify 700,000? And I'm not finding it in the neighborhood. So once again, I'm in customer service as well as I am in the position of saying, how do I help this person out? Maybe this neighborhood just hasn't seen a good sale. But now I have to go, okay, if I'm looking in Gilbert and I'm looking in this area, now I'm going to say, okay, well, let's kind of do that 1 square mile type thing. And I just go, and I'll just draw it like that.
You gotta skip over Agritopia there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll obviously ignore those ones, but now I've got 258 houses that have sold in here. So now I got to get a little bit pickier. So I want at least minimum 2-level home because I'm not going to compare 1 level to a 2-level. And look at how I already dropped off from 258 to 194. I'm not going to look at these small homes. So I got to go, okay, I'm at 30. I'm going to go 2,500 to 3,600. Maybe I should go 2,800. Now I'm down to 30 homes. So I just, to run it like that, now I'm going, okay, well, here's a 700, sweet. And I know Lionsgate has small lots
Yep.
and it's 3,308. So I'm going to look at this
From this police station. Yep.
and you'll see why this is not a good comp in a second. It's got a private pool and a community pool on a same size lot, 6990. What did I say ours was?
66.
66. So this one's slightly bigger.
I've been in that model.
This one,
Yeah. Not that particular house, but I've seen that model before.
and it looks basic, you know, you still builder grade tile. Decent, you know, they did this fireplace, not my style, but you know, that cost a little bit of money. I hate this carpet thing like that when they do that, it drives me nuts, but who am I? Kitchen's nice, but you know, you can tell it was done in the early 2000s because it's got that beveled edge the way it is, you know, the round bull nose. So this kitchen, while expensive, is also 20 years old already or 15 years old. It's got the pool room, nice shower. I mean, it's appointed nicely. I'm sure the people who own it like it. And the pool, it's got a built-in barbecue, but you don't have much of a yard. It's all concrete.
Oh, and that's one of those ones that has the detached garage in the back. Is that what I just saw there?
Well, and so this is why it's not a comp, right?
Right.
Look, 4-car garage. There's a massive difference in value between a 2-car garage and a 4-car garage in the resale market. I
Yeah,
don't know what it means for an appraiser, but resale, I personally, if I'm spending 700,000, I want 3 cars. That's just me. 5 years ago, if I'm spending 400,000, I want a 3-car garage because you know you look at what's out there, and so I'm going through and I'm going, okay, well that's good. You know, here's a 675, so I'm like, all right, I'm starting to see some numbers that work, and I even saw this one at 835. I'm like, dang, you know, built in 2000, but what do you see? 3-car garage.
Model.
You know, this one here built in 2019, I can't use that. So I'm like, if I start to see too many new homes, I'll just go in here and I'll go year built, and I'm going to drop it off at 2010 because I think this house was built in 2004. So I'm dropping it up to 210. Now I'm down to 13 houses, and good news is I got no agritopias, like Jason was saying.
mhm.
So now I'm looking at newer, older-ish homes, but I still have, you know, here's 790, 3-car garage. 736, $5, 4-car garage. So really, at 736, just to backtrack, as a closed comp, this agent did a crappy job at 699.
I would agree.
Question. So if you have one that's, 3-car garage is 50,000 more than what you have, but it's the same thing, wouldn't you just take off 10? Isn't it like 10 grand per bay or per room, per whatever, for listing purposes?
Well, and so this is where you've got to look at it. The way we see things, and I know Jason and I have talked about this, the way we see things is different than the appraiser see it, because the appraiser goes, okay, I'll give you 10 grand off, for instance, as that. But then I look at the resale market and I go, well, I'm seeing a $50,000 swing personally, because look, just right here between Betsy and Rolls, 650 to 736. And the biggest difference is a 2-car garage versus a 3-car garage. And here's another 736 with a 4-car garage. And so I had a really hard time when I went in here and I said, okay, let's look at garages. And I put in garage spaces. I put minimum 3. The lowest price for a 3-car is $675. Well, here's a 630. But if I go to the flip side and go, let's say the max is 2. The highest price for a 2-car garage was $650. So that means something to me when I'm looking at it from the resale and listing a perspective. That was a hard thing for me. I'm like, man, 650 is my highest comp. And, I'm looking at that. I'm not even in the pool care. Like, I haven't even looked at pools at this point. I'm just looking at, if I go, okay, well, let's pull the years out. Maybe I can find a newer home. Now I found a 735, but this is probably 2019. Yeah, 2019. So long story short, she's got a cash offer, and that's what saved her. I had a really hard time with this one. It was appeasing her client, and we listed it actually at 690. And then we went coming soon at 690 because I felt like, I could give a little bit on that because their kitchen was, it's a nice kitchen. And that's where I gave them. And the pictures, honestly, they looked a lot better in person. I mean, it's a nice setup kitchen. You could tell that somebody spent a lot of money on it at one point in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus that
Yeah.
650 sale wasn't closed yet either.
Right, exactly. So we were, we don't know where that one's gonna be. But this is where appraisal comping versus agent comping sometimes don't go hand in hand. I had a property, and I don't know if you remember this one, Sam. You and Mike were going back and forth, sitting at open house and just pulling leads out of there like crazy up in Northeast Mesa. That single story home, and I can't remember the name of the neighborhood, but I mean, we were on the market for, I think, 62 days before we got a contract on that one. And at the time, I think my best comp was a pool had 600, no pool was at 550. And I remember talking to the sellers and saying, look, in an appraisal, you're probably going to end up with a $10,000 swing. But right now, what this neighborhood is telling people is that people are willing to spend $50,000 more to get a house like this with a pool. Because what am I looking at? And I know this is some bull crap that we're not supposed to talk about, or at least put into our, listings. But if you've got a 3,360 square foot, 5-bedroom home with a playroom or pool room or theater room, whatever you want to call it, what do you most likely have to put into that house? Little people, kids. You most likely have a family. You're not an empty nester. You're not an old person in a wheelchair. You're a young family with kids who need space and a pool. I can't imagine, especially in Gilbert, you all know what I mean, having a house with 5, 4+ kids with no pool. I can't, the kids probably just stand in the backyard aiming the hose at each other just to get the parents
Yeah.
need to get them out of their hair. So in this part of town, for a 2-story home, I would say a pool has about a $50,000 value. Now, let's just for fun, let's go into Brian's neighborhood, right? Because, let's just be honest. Let's look at the map. Everything you see here is cookie cutter. Like below the 60, this whole area, everything is cookie cutter. It's all master plan communities. It's all, model match, families, blah, 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 all that fun stuff, right? So, easy to comp. Now we start to get into Brian's area, like let's get into, over here. This is all like land of the no HOA. This is all built in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, older homes. I'm just going to zoom in and just put a little box right around here, and I'm just going to grab randomly a house.
Nope, that's ghetto.
That's why nothing came for sale. Nobody wants to buy there.
You gotta go left of the 51 and south, right by the mountain.
How do you know I don't like the ghetto? So I'm just gonna randomly grab one of these houses. And just for fun, we'll grab this house with 15 days on the market. It's an open door as the example. And so we're going to comp this house. I've never walked in this house before in my life. 1,898 square feet, 685. No HOA. Has a pool. If you can see, it's got a carport versus garage. So that's what we're going to comp, because we're dangerous like that. So I've already got a rectangle drawn, so I'm just going to keep that for right now. I may clean it up a little bit, but let's just go closed, active, 90 days. And then we're just gonna do a quick scan. 21, I see some 3000s. So 47 houses, that's a little bit too much for me to be able to run these numbers the way I want to. So I'm gonna go 1890, so I'm gonna go 2200 square feet to,
To point out something there, you see that 1889 square foot owner? So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a red flag for you if you're an agent or an appraiser. It's a red flag. Luckily,
it says the same thing on the tax
Yeah.
records though, so I don't
Yeah,
know why
just-
they chose owner.
just remember to always double check that if you see owner, because usually that means that the owner gave them the size, they didn't verify it, and it could be more times than not, it's wrong.
Good point. So let's go in here and I'm gonna change the square footage search. So let's just go 2200 to like 1500. And once again, single story. So we're gonna just go number of interior levels, max it at 1. I have 27 to look at.
I'd probably put an age in there too, just because of the wide range of ages, but that's just me.
Well, this is built in 71, so I may cap the age at like 1990. Let's just see how that goes. But remember, 685. So this is 1680, 649, carport, garage, 639. So I'm already seeing a discrepancy. This looks like a newer home. Now, granted, maybe a better part of the little area. This is renovated. It is under contract, so we don't know what it's going to close for. This is a nice renovation. This is, you can tell they gutted the whole thing. They're asking 639, and then Open Door over here has a very not so nice exterior picture and as basic as can be. Like, they didn't touch the kitchen, that was probably already there. They probably just put in that carpet and maybe painted.
Can
It's
you see
clean.
who's listing the other one? Is it like Hog?
What's that?
Can you see who's listing the other property? Oh, I guess it's this one has a pool.
Well, this one's Open Door. The other one that we're comping, this is Realty One. But it's got a garage too. So you start to go through and I'm seeing 870, 910. I mean, you've got this wide range. So it's like, okay, well, I'm getting too much of a big range here. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go garage space. I'm going to go carport spaces minimum 1. By putting them a minimum of 1, any house that has a garage, look at that. I went from 27 to 5. Highest price house with carport.
Yeah,
Just
that's
like
cool.
that. And so you have this one, same neighborhood, this one, same neighborhood. This one's bigger, closed at 648. This one actually was renovated, it looks like, at least, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
So if I'm in there and I'm bringing a buyer, so now you put on your buyer hat, right? I'm in here and I'm bringing a buyer over to this one. And I know it's Open Door. I'm going to go, what did these people, and I'm going to use this word very nicely. What did these fools buy this place for?
220.
They bought it at 611.
Wow.
So
Didn't do
take
squat to it, but carpet and paint. Jesus.
Yeah, so 611, and then you take the 7% fee, or let's just call it 5% because I think they've changed it a little bit. But let's just call it that. So they're in it for 580. Based on these comps, let's look at this one. I mean, the front yard just looks wretched, but somebody bought it for 615. I'm getting scared because they haven't even shown me one picture of the inside. So some investor bought this thing for 615. and they're probably gonna be best at 6. This is probably your best comp for a resale.
Yeah.
So my gut, I'm going in here. It's nicer than this one probably, but not as nice as it's 645. I'm bringing a buyer in and offering 625. That's my offer on that house.
That would be legit. Does it,
I don't care that Open Door
What's
wants
the days on
685.
market? How many days on market?
I think it was 16. I think that's why I chose that one. 15. Based on comps alone, I'm coming in at 625.
And that girl too, the Andrea Groves, she does a lot of those. I've dealt with her before. You'll talk to her, she'll be like, yeah, we don't have anything coming in like this. Cause I did that on the other one. It was like 10 days. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't have any offers. Put one in. And then submitted an offer, and a couple hours later, like, hey, we just got another offer as well. If you're willing to bump it up, blah blah blah. I'm like, nope, bye. So she likes to do that. She'll get back to you right away, but she does that whole fake, oh, out of the blue, 10 days later, we all of a sudden have 15 offers.
I think this one's going to have a much higher market time than 15 days. That's my personal belief. And if I'm going in there and I'm representing the seller, I'm probably, if they're thinking 680, I'm going, where are you getting that number from? Like I got nothing here. I mean, my best comp is 670, and sure, I don't know this neighborhood per se. I did pick a pretty small area, so maybe I'll just go and I'll just open this up a little bit, or maybe go all the way down to the mountain. That's not fair because those are probably nice lots.
South of Shea is PB, so that you can't go there.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go there. Well, this is another trick too. So if you do, so like if you're like, all right, I'm going to run these numbers, and you're like, all right, I'm just going to draw this square. I'll run into this if I'm like in Tempe, like Tempe, Chandler, Ahwatukee, right there, and you look at your list and you see a bunch of stuff where Phoenix, and then you'll see PV. I'll just go into city and I'll just type in Phoenix, or I'll like Tempe, so that way I can just draw my square, but I keep it, especially when you're on those borders like that. So I've got 11 properties. So even with that bigger of a square, I'm still, my best comp is 695. But if you look at the map, I mean, this is where the 685 is, or 695. I mean, they're two different neighborhoods. This is south of Chola. I mean, it's
Choya. If you're in Arizona, say it right. So yeah.
How does Sai say it? That's what I want to know.
So everything near, so Cactus and above, it starts getting ghetto. Like when I say ghetto, it's not like ghetto, but it's like houses that were worth like $200,000 to $300,000 is right there at the Cactus border. Everything between Cactus and Choya is like that next stage up, and then everything south of Choya, and then once you start getting to the Shea area, that's where you start bumping up another $200,000 to $300,000 on homes.
Okay.
So like the values change dramatically because everything that's north of Cactus is considered to be part of what's called the square. So like between 32nd to 16th Street, from Cactus all the way up to like Greenway, it's like not the greatest areas. That's intermingled with like trailers on normal lots that are like boarded up, drug neighborhoods, stuff like that.
Well, so what you'll run into is so you're saying everything above Cactus, you're
Yeah,
gonna have this guy
way different. Yep.
Well, but you're gonna have him at 450.
Yeah, exactly.
But you'll run into that seller inside this spot who goes, I want to list my house close to where these guys are at.
Right. But you
know what I
can't.
mean?
Can you? I mean, because realistically, that you have that border that says differently.
Right. But I mean, you're going here and say the values are lower up here versus down here, it's a totally different ball game.
Right.
And knowing your local market that's why knowing your local market is so important, so that you can make that differentiation for somebody, because you're sitting down. And so remember back to now I'm meeting with a seller, right? So I'm gonna try to come in here and I'm gonna sell this, I'm trying to sell my services and get the listing. And they want 685. But let's just imagine, I don't have the comps to prove the 685 to begin with. Because maybe below Choya is better than being between Choya and Cactus. And I don't have enough, I've got 2 comps to show whether that's true or not, but this is probably what they're thinking of. This is probably the one that they use to compare to say, this is why we're gonna ask 695, but there's no, this is renovating.
I feel like you can't even compare those two.
You
This is
can't,
like more open.
it's renovated. I mean, I don't know if I like this
Oh, yeah.
corner sink thing, but whatever, that's my problem. So this one's been renovated, it's been updated, it's the one that we're using as, the present is not. So now I'm gonna go back, hit my CMA, my one line. Obviously theirs is not in here. And so you pull that out, this wouldn't be in here. And you're basically saying, look, your only competition is at 650. I'd actually feel more comfortable taking the listing at 650 and seeing what I can do. Because it's a lot easier. You have a lot of buyer's agents out there who, and I tell sellers this and say, because they're like, well, if they want it for 650, why don't they just write me an offer? I say most agents are afraid to write an offer, especially the way the market's been the last few years, for 35,000 below your list price, let alone writing 625 or 635. And so you leave them with this and you say, my challenge to you is go and look at these houses. I'm going to go back, I'm going to do my research. I'm going to look at what's available, and I'll help you kind of pinpoint a price. I know you want 685. The only one that I can see here, and you can even see, this is a good example. The one at 695 was asking 720. So my challenge to you is to go look through, look at these ones. And then, I'll be doing the same thing. I'll be looking, and I look at every single picture. And so I show them, it said, and I'll roll my hand through the MLS, the thing, and I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna look at every single picture on every single one of these listings. And then I'll give you a call and we'll, kind of go over what I think the price should be at. Give you my recommendation of where you want to be at. And they're like, okay, that's fair. And by the time they do it, they may still say, well, I'd really like to try at 685. What are you going to do? Are you going to take it or are you going to walk away?
Take it.
Well, shoot, look at the bottom one. Even the original list price 750.
Right.
Their sell price is 100,000 less than what they totally wanted to begin with.
Right. So let's look at Cortez. So that agent at Cortez said, screw it. I'm taking the listing at 750. And then it sold at, but by the time it went under contract at 648, the list price was 673. And so over 88 days from October until the end of January, this agent, coming soon, price change. And he did a big one. 750 to 690. That was a big drop.
2 weeks.
Then 670, then 655. Then he went back up. I'm guessing he was getting multiple offers at that point, readjusted the price. It falls through, sticks to that number, gets it under contract again, closes.
Fell through again.
Oh, it fell through again. Probably got it under contract at 673. Gets it under contract again, closes at 648. Was that a lot of work?
That was a lot of work.
I have
How
a
many?
better question.
Well, yeah.
Was it worth it? Absolutely.
Oh yeah, 100%.
This is our future.
Hey,
As the market goes normal, this is normal. There's nothing unusual about this in a historical perspective.
hey,
And
Len,
so that's why I'm saying, like, if I would take this listing at 685 if that's what they really want to do, but I can guarantee you that I'm having a
It's a
different
good example.
conversation with them regarding this.
That's a good example to show them that listing history when you're taking a property like that.
Oh, for sure. And if they're fighting you and they're using that as an example, that's where you bring that in. So that's the beauty of, you can never prepare properly and totally for a listing presentation for everything the seller's going to throw at you. And so when you walk in the door with a perspective of say, hey, I'm just here collecting information so I can go back and do my homework, they'll start to give you that stuff. And then you're like, you know what? I'm going to print that history report. And so then, you know, now you're sitting down with them. Maybe you schedule to say, look, let me come back. Let's talk again. And so then you get to this graph. And I'm gonna zoom in for Tim.
Hey, I got a quick question. They were under list price for 673, but they closed at 649, are we just assuming things came up on like inspection and stuff and they just like counted them back for it? That's why it closed at that price?
That's a possibility. You know, you look at the report on that one.
Cortez. Sorry, I was trying to ask, but
No, it's a good question. There was no concessions, so, and it was a conventional loan. So maybe, but maybe they just wrote an offer and said, look, you've been going through this roller coaster of up and down and under contract. I'll give you the house, like I'll give you an offer, but it's going to be at 648. You know, maybe they started off at 640 and settled at 648, because 648 is kind of a weird random number. That happen inside of a negotiation, to be honest with you. But you know, it's hard to say. And the only way to find out would be to call the agent. But you know, if I'm going to list this house at 685, the conversation I'm having with them is back to this graph where I'm saying, where do you want to be? You know, based off of the comps that I'm looking at, based off the conversation that we're having, my guess is that your competition right here sits anywhere between 615 and 640. My recommendation is you put your list on the price right here in the middle at 625. Anything 650 or above, I would consider being non-competitive. It's like fishing with your pole out of the water. Could you get a fish to come up, jump, and grab that line? Absolutely. Is it guaranteed? Absolutely not. Aggressive, I would say anything below 615 would be aggressive, and you'll probably most likely get multiple offers on it and end up right back at this, you know, this other number. But I still think right around 625 is where that's my price recommendation. And if I'm wrong, it's positioned correctly inside of your competition and you'll get multiple offers on it. It'll move up and it'll correct itself accordingly because you're inside of your competition. That's the key, is you want to be inside of the competition. And I like to be somewhere in the middle to the high, depending on the condition. And that house is nice. So, you know, maybe 630. And so you say 625, and maybe he goes, well, would you take it? You know, what about 640 at the high end of the competition? I'd be comfortable with that. I would take that listing. And then you go down and you say, look, our goal and what we've seen statistically speaking is you should get one offer for every 7 showings that you have. And our goal in a normal market is, you know, so right now what I say, you know, in a normal market, it would take about 30 days to get your 7 showings, and we should get you an offer within those 30 days. Right now, I'd expect to see those 7 showings within a few days to a week. And so our goal is to price this accordingly so that you're under contract within 7 days. In a normal market, our goal is 30 days. And so I left this like this because I want to be able to have that conversation to let people know we're not in a normal market still. But this allows them to choose it. And if they say, I really want to go to that 685, you're basically writing 685 in this where it says above market, non-competition, and say, all right, so let me do this. If we don't have the 7 showings on the 7 and the 1 offer within 2 weeks, we'll be talking about a price reduction. Is that fair? Yeah, that's fair. Great. Sign here. Or I'll have, you know, I'll get the paperwork together. I'll have it sent over to you here shortly. Sounds good. So that's the art and science of the CMA, of the market analysis, is not just where would you price it, but how do you secure the listing to do that? You know, it's the same thing if, you know, if you're looking at this house let's say this house was listed at 640 and your buyer wants to offer 600. Well, I have comps that say 640 is way too high, but I feel comfortable writing it at 625. Because I think it's not as nice as this house. I'd rather, if I'm going with a carport, I think this house is way nicer. I think it's got a cool, funky feel to it. So I'm going for this house over this one. If they were both at 650, I'm still going with Laurel. Looks much more thought out. So, any questions on what we kind of went over here? Did this help?
Sure. Always helps.
That's true. And I'm glad we jumped into a neighborhood that, isn't so cookie cutter as well, because I mean, we could do this for hours and pick properties out in the middle of nowhere. There's a reason why inside the listing pre-qual script, there's the question of, so when I see you, how much do you want to list your home for? It's better to know what you're walking into versus going in blind, because it's worse when you walk in blind and you say, yeah, my recommended price is 625. And then 2 days later, you see them list at 685 and you go, that agent freaking bought the listing. Because if I would have known they wanted 685, I could have at least gone in and said, look, I'll list it at 685, but if it's not doing what we need it to do, we're gonna have to make some adjustments. Here's what I believe, but we can still, go for it. If that makes sense. So
Yeah, don't lose a listing.
yeah, I mean, don't lose this. Cortez, perfect example of why you still take the listing. I mean, they were offering a 3% co-bro. For all we know, they were taking 2 or 2.5. I mean, that's still a good commission. They still help the seller. You look at who owned it, look at the mom's tax records. Mr. Constanzo needed to sell this house. Now, it looks like he flipped it because he bought it from this equity company and then
But-
probably flipped it, or he is the flipper, but still, I mean,
I was gonna say that's not. I mean, that's I guess a decent flip.
yeah, it's a decent flip. I mean, he went from 510. I mean, he still made over 100,000. He probably put 70 into it, but
But aren't you paying like taxes on that?
He paid 40 grand out in commissions.
yeah,
So,
you got to get out of your head. Who gives a crap about taxes?
yep.
Taxes are, I mean, if you're a flipper, then that's part of your equation,
If you're paying taxes, you're making money.
right? Exactly.
I
So
tell my wife every time I write a check. It's
Yeah.
a good thing. It means we're making money.
I've seen people, and I'm bringing, because you brought this up once too, because I told you how I like to flip stocks, and you're like, aren't you worried about paying taxes? And I'm like, I've seen people pause their careers and stop driving for more because they didn't want to break a tax threshold. And so they settled for mediocrity to spite the tax man. So basically they just screwed their entire family and said, look, I know you want this great life. I'm just going to give you a mediocre life so that I don't have to pay more in taxes. You know what I say? Go make as much as you possibly can and get a good accountant that will help you pay the least amount possible legally. I'm not saying screw the tax man. I'm saying do it right. So if that's my job, is to go and flip houses, who cares about the taxes? That's the cost of doing, it's a cost of sale. And Mr. Costanzo understood that.
Yeah, it does say flip on there on the side. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's yeah.
This was the flip from Black Canyon Equity over to him. Probably a hard money loan.
I was gonna say it was flipped back to back. JSK bought it to flip it, and then
He
they
was
flipped
a
it to Black Canyon.
wholesaler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, JSK's wholesale. Yep.
Yeah. So he got it for 492, flipped it for 20 grand. So sounds about right.
To another wholesaler.
Yeah. Margaret here back in August. She was the
Oh look, yeah, no, that's what it was. So the wholesaler flipped it to a wholesaler who flipped it to someone else.
yeah.
Because it's all on the same date. Jesus.
Yeah, it's crazy. So Cool. Well, I'm gonna roll with that. We'll come up with some more topics for next week. Like I said, it's about the seller conversation right now. And I think for us, it's, you know, this is the perfect example of saying yes to every listing opportunity you can get, being honest about it. So I'm not saying over like, oh yeah, I'll get you 685, because you also don't want to be two-faced where you tell them, oh yeah, I can get you 685. You know, I really think we go 690, but you know, to make sure, let's go 685, knowing that it shouldn't be listed any more, a penny more than 650. Still be honest with people and use, you know, by using this chart to position and say, look, this is what's going on in the market. Where do you want to be? Then they chose it. You're recommending here, they're choosing this and say, okay, great. Well, if this doesn't work, and you just go back to, if we don't get the 7 showings that we're looking for, or if we get the 7 showings and no offers, we need to talk about an adjustment to, you know, to change the strategy. And so now you're not talking price drop, you're saying, you're talking strategy. Say, you know, we'll get together. If we don't have any offers in a couple weeks and we don't have anything under contract, let's get together again to talk, to relook at our strategy. Because nobody wants to say, yeah, this is Jason, I'm calling you to get a price reduction. Like, hey, let's take a look at our strategy and what we're doing. Well, what do you think? Well, we're getting the activity, we're getting the eyes, but we're not getting the offer. So what I think we need to do is we need to get a little bit closer where our competition is listed at, you know, maybe 650. I really want 625, and I may just keep that to myself. But if I can inch them towards the 650 in an appreciating market, you may meet in the middle. By the time you hit 650, 2-3 weeks from now, you may now go, okay, well, 625 is out the window. When Jason met with his people a couple weeks ago, he was thinking 675. You know, a couple days later, you know what? 675 is out the window. Now we're at 700. So it changes. And that's why you're doing a strategy adjustment, not a pricing adjustment. So cool. Well, thanks everyone. I'll throw out another survey, or maybe just re-update that one that we had and delete the classes that we've already done. And that way we can kind of keep that as a rolling survey of, you know, what topics to hit next. Because, you know, as our market's changing and moving, the sharper we are, the better better off we're going to be. So cool. Thanks everyone. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you. Laters.
Yep.
Thank you.